My name is Paul and I'm a voice and accent coach. So since 2014, I've helped hundreds of people from dozens of different countries get clearer and more confident in their speech. So I work with people who have different goals and have different challenges. I guess one of the first main ones is people come to me because they just can't be understood first time. They speak up in a meeting or on the phone and people say, so what did you say? I didn't catch that. They're not catching every word, or they're kind of slightly behind, or there's something going on which is just a complete barrier to communication. And a lot of that is due to things like the sounds of speech that you use, the vowel sounds, the consonant sounds, the stress patterns, the intonation patterns. And these things are a huge influence on whether you're understood. Not necessarily the only thing, but that's one of the reasons. And that's one of the key things I work on with people. Another reason I work with people is simply because they want to get more confident. Maybe they're speaking in big groups of people. It could be in meetings or it could be in presentations. Maybe they're delivering keynote speeches and they're just not quite confident getting their message across, first of all, clearly, but also effectively. So I work with people with that in mind as well. So that involves, I guess, working not just on the sounds we produce, but also how we structure the stories we're telling, and how we deliver things with rhythm of speech and inflection in order to get it across in a way that's quite authentic, but also that makes a difference, that delivers the message that you want to deliver. So that's another reason I work with people. One more is simply English is confusing, and a lot of the reason people kind of hire me or that they want to work with me is because they've come across how tricky the English language is. If English is their second language, they can often struggle to be understood, but also to figure out the spelling of English and how it relates to the sounds of English. And of course, this is this has been my main focus for years now, and over that time I've developed knowledge of patterns and approaches that will help people figure out how to unpick the complexity of English pronunciation, especially from a second language perspective. So I guess the first question people have on their mind is, are you coaching actors, or are you coaching, who are you coaching when you're doing this stuff? And the answer is really everybody. I mean, yes, I do work with professional actors or voiceover artists looking to learn the standard British English accent or any accent, along with non-native actors who want to do some roles in English. But probably the majority of my clients are actually just, I guess I often call them civilians, just people who are non-actors, people who are doctors or students, people from all walks of life. I've taught people who are just students and quite young, just starting out in their careers, all the way up to people who are CEOs of companies in various industries, whether it's computing or whether it's sales and marketing, or people who are working in medicine, or chemists and teachers, all sorts of people. Basically anyone who wants to improve their clarity, their communication skills in English. So if you think about how a baby learns their first language, learns to communicate for the very first time, they spend a lot of time listening, and that's the only way they can really distinguish between one sound and another sound, is by listening to the world around them and trying to figure out what's going on. So part of my coaching is based on listening and distinguishing different sounds. It's also based on physical awareness. So learning and getting more familiar with your speech instrument, how your tongue is moving or how your lips are moving, what you do versus what a speaker of, let's say, standard Southern British English or whatever accent you're learning, what they do, and learning the difference, learning to distinguish the sound, that sound awareness, and to distinguish the feeling and the movement involved with it. That's physical awareness. And if you're learning like a baby, you're learning very effectively. But of course, we can learn like adults too. And I do encourage people to also look into patterns and notice patterns, which is a real superpower we have as adults. We can not just learn like a baby and put that hat on, we can also put on our adult hat and learn like an adult and learn much more complex patterns and rules, perhaps, when it comes to English pronunciation and intonation. And that really helps us to make sense of the world of English and the world of speech in order to improve. Typically, the first session involves me listening to you, reading out a set of words and phrases as an assessment. It's quite an informal process, but it's very comprehensive. The assessment will cover all of the different sounds I want to hear you say so that I can get a full picture of your speaking habits. And at that stage, I figure out what we need to work on, given whatever your goals are, what we need to work on first, and of course, what is the next thing we need to work on, and in what order. After that first session comes my planning stage, where I can design a course based on you, and that will be unique to you, your habits and your goals, along with me coaching you through one of the top things I noticed in that assessment, so you can get a picture of what the coaching is like. And I think that's probably the best way to learn, is just by going through that process, having a little bit of coaching, so you can kind of understand what this work is really like. So alongside all that, of course, you need to have some resources, and I provide that for you. Ashley, my mentor, he wrote a book called English Pronunciation Roadmap. That's the actual ebook he wrote. It's a full comprehensive guide to English pronunciation, intonation, all of the sounds of English. And it's got exercises for many different types of speaker. So it's a big resource, but my job is to filter out all the non-relevant stuff and show you what's most important. And then you've got, both during the session and in between sessions, you've got some resources and some audio, plenty of audio files as well to complement that training. And of course, over the years, I've been developing my own resources. So if there are any tiny gaps in that ebook, then I can fill those gaps with the resources I've created over the years as well. Well, I guess my first experience of the voice and how it can work or maybe not work for you was when I was a teenager. I was struggling to be heard from the back seat of a theatre when it was the next day. The big performance was the next day, and I was saying my lines, and I know I couldn't be heard from the back seat of the theatre because the director was in the back seat of the theatre saying, "Paul, I can't hear you, speak up." Every time I say my line, "I can't hear you, speak up, speak up." And I didn't really know how. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to project my voice in a way that didn't make me feel in pain or tie my voice out or sound like I was shouting. And I was really, I guess I was of course frustrated and a little bit embarrassed about that, but I was also quite curious about how can I actually improve this? Can I improve this? So I guess I could have gone down one of two routes. I could have said to myself, well, that's just me. I can't speak up. I can't speak loudly. That's just the way I'm made. That's my genetics or whatever. I just can't do it, you know. And I guess for some things that's true. I can't fly. But it's not necessarily true for the voice. And I'm glad I went down the other route, which was investigating. Can I change this? Is there something I can do? Like, are there exercises I can do to train to make my voice more powerful or clearer? Or can I use it in different ways and learn different accents? I was fascinated with learning to use my voice in different ways, and how much of my voice was me and my instrument, and my genetics, but how much of it was also habit and just how I habitually spoke, which is of course changeable if you know the way to do it and the exercises to do it. So I guess that's what started me off on my whole journey of just not being understood in a theatre. And since then I've been doing various different things in this field. I suppose it started off in Vietnam. I was working in a university, volunteering as an English teacher. So I was teaching English as a foreign language, basically. And my biggest interest was not grammar, it was the voice. It was how we produce different sounds. And I was helping the students, trying to teach them how to produce the sounds of English, or like the stress patterns, intonation patterns. I became fascinated with what's the right thing I can say, or the question I can ask them to induce a certain reaction to make them get the sound, or to spark their curiosity, to get them to try something in a different way. And that was a big part of why I became interested in that area of work, and why I'm doing it today. It was teaching English as a foreign language. Since then, I did a degree in drama, which involved lots of training in voice and training in performance, alongside all aspects of theatre. So I got my first class degree in drama, graduated back in 2010. And since then, a lot of my development has come from, I guess, two things. One is mentors. I've been lucky enough to have two really, really good mentors. One was in voiceover, the other one in speech and pronunciation coaching specifically. And also just the process of teaching myself. And the way I've approached it is I've managed to find people to teach. I've had clients. Since 2014, I had my first client. And since then, I've taught them something. And then I've reflected on how well it went for them. And I've gone away and studied what I needed to study to fill those knowledge gaps, if I had any. Or I've gone away to develop a different approach if my approach didn't quite work so well. So it's a process of trial and error, of learning how to teach, not just the knowledge, but also how to actually deliver all that complex information and get someone to change their speech habits, to be able to hear a difference between one sound and another. That process has been a process of trial and error I've done on the job. So in my one-to-one coaching job, which I really started after having that mentor I spoke to you about, Ashley Howard, who was the head voice coach at one of the top UK drama schools. He mentored me for 1 year, and since then he's always been around to answer questions because we still work together. But after that year, that was 2014 when I finished my mentoring with him. I had my first client, and then that process started. I've been coaching ever since, and I've worked with, since then, hundreds of people from dozens of different countries. But that was my first, I guess, adventure in the world of this coaching, was via that mentoring. Now, Ashley and I, my mentor and I, we started working together as well. We co-founded a website and a YouTube channel called English Pronunciation Roadmap. That's based off the name of the book which Ashley authored, which is all about English pronunciation and intonation. We spent several years releasing hundreds of videos on YouTube, teaching group courses. We created resources, whether they're written or audio or video resources, all about standard Southern British English pronunciation and intonation. So while I was doing that, I was researching videos for the YouTube channel, creating trainings and trying to figure out how do I best teach this in a written format, or how do I teach this in a video format? And then I was trying out all these ideas on my coaching clients. I was still coaching, and I have been since 2014. And that YouTube channel is still active, so you can subscribe over there, English Pronunciation Roadmap YouTube channel, and you can learn from our videos there. But since then, our main focus, both of us separately, Ashley and I, has been our one-to-one coaching. So that's returned, my focus has returned back to one-to-one coaching, which is now what I'm doing today. So that first step really is just about reaching out to me and booking in that first call. And in that first call, we can get to know each other a little bit. I can get to know your goals. You can get to know my approach a bit better by doing it. I can teach you something in that very first session, which will give you awareness on the one key thing I think will be important for you to take away and work on, whether we continue working together or not. So I think that's a good way of doing things. So you first of all, you get an idea of what the coaching is like, but also you have some value to go away with, and I can answer any questions. So if you want to make that first meeting and reach out, then feel free to click the link around here, and I'll look forward to hearing from you.